Pieratt Project family, how's it going? Now, a lot of you guys are lifters, athletes. You're serious about the gym, and we are too. And that's why we've been using Slingshot products for years, all right? You have the original Slingshot, obviously the glittery pink hip circle, which is my personal favorite. But if you don't like that, then you have the normal hip circle that's used to warm up the hips. But on the website, they have tons of equipment, knee sleeves, elbow sleeves, the gangster wraps right there. So you need to go check them out. And Andrew, can you tell them more about it?
Yes, that's over at markbellslingshot.com, and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject10 to save 10% off your entire order. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes. So is there another ball inside of the little black ball too?
It's like those Russian nesting dolls.
There's a little person in there.
So let me out, bitch. No,
there's a whole galaxy in there.
Yeah,
it exists,
dude. So what the fuck? What's it like to bow hunt a bear? And like just I don't know. It sounds terrifying.
It's
yeah.
So I grew up hunting bear. My dad's a bear hunter. He comes from bear hunters back in Kentucky.
Let's try to stay on the microphone a little bit more. That's all right.
You can move the whole base that way. You can go where we got to go.
Second generation bear hunter.
Yeah. And
my dad does fucking taxes. My dad's a fucking nerd,
and my dad wasn't there.
And he's like 5'2". But yeah, he was. At least he was there, right? I don't know.
Hey, it's true, but it's whatever.
Dad was a bear hunter.
Yeah,
That's
we grew up.
Awesome.
We grew up hunting them with hounds, blue tick, red tick, plot hounds, and so we always joke that's where I get my cardio, chasing bears. You got to keep up with the dogs in the mountains. But the bow hunting, I got into archery pretty recently. I think about 2 years ago.
Wow.
And so that's.
I want to choke up on this even more. Sorry to bug you, but
there we go.
Make sure everybody can hear you.
Yeah, but. So yeah, the archery part is relatively new. I've been doing that my whole life. But the bear has always been the focus. I mean, we'll hunt deer and elk and whatever else. But
when you were young, did you hunt with your dad? Did you have other siblings? We know your brother because he used to work here.
Yeah, just me and Jeff. So he didn't get in on as much as because he was younger at the time. But
he was a little pussy. It's okay to say it.
I mean, yeah. But
he could kick your face off, Mark. You better be careful.
I know, Jeff's our boy.
Yeah, you and me both. So yeah, we got out there a lot, but I was a little older, so I followed my dad around a bit more, and puked more times than I can count, just keeping up with them. But I remember too, when I was 6 or 7 when I started going out with him, and I remember for a year or two I'd been asking, and he warned me. He's like, "Look, it's not going to be what you think it is." And he was right, because when you go bear hunting, you're cold, you're miserable, you're up at 3 a.m. and you're just the whole time just trying to keep up with the dogs, trying to find the dogs, trying to get them back on a scent, whatever it is. And you're pretty much miserable the whole time. And it's a strange thing because it's like the second you get back, especially if you bring something home, the second you get back and get a meal in you and get a shower, maybe a little nap, you're just like, all right, when are we going back?
How long does this take, man?
Depends. I mean, I've been on hunts that lasted a day. Like you go out at 3, 4 in the morning, they get on something, they hit on and off, and you're in a whole different part of the country the next night, And then also depends where you killed the bear. So that was the thing. Like the old timers, they'd say like if a guy was really tough and really stubborn, they'd say like that guy will kill a bear anywhere, which means he's 20 miles away. It's treed, up a creek. So like growing up, sometimes we'd have to float him out like on a creek. So you'd have a big group of guys. You'd tie ropes to each leg and either drag and or carry it out best you could. And if you can get a creek going downstream, that's real nice. You can float it down and work it out from there. Personally, I'm more partial to just piecing it up and doing multiple trips, but the old-fashioned style was, the saying was you leave only a gut pile behind. So everything else you carry out in one piece.
How would you piece it up? Because wouldn't other animals come to it or something like that?
You do your best. You got to be quick too. I mean, if it's hot, bear meat will go bad quick. But you just work quarters. You generally take the cut you want most first.
Try to put it in the shade and cover it and
Yeah.
whatever you can, I guess.
Yeah, and if you can hang it or whatever, the game bags help too because they let the air kind of circulate a bit without letting anything get into it. But you take your back straps and whatever your cuts of choice are first, and you go back and hope you get the rest. But
what kind of bear are we talking about?
Black bear.
And then
I've never hunted
how
brown
big
bear.
are those?
They get up. I mean, like on the big, the further north you get, they'll get up to 700-800 pounds. But around here, you're looking at more 2 to 4, somewhere like if I'm going. Let's see. My birthday is September 9th. So I'm going up to Oregon for a bear hunt. Yeah, coming up.
Your birthday's coming up too, right?
Yeah, it's the 7th.
7th.
Oh, man, all the handsome guys right there clustered up. All equally jacked, too.
Uh-huh.
But
Well, we could both wrap these guys up.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's true. There you go.
Please don't. You're like, hey.
Start with Mark first, so you get tired, and then make
Congrats on the brown, by the way. I saw
Thank
that
you.
post. That's awesome,
I
man.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And technically, we are Jiu Jitsu cousins of. I started training under one of Cassio's other black belts. So originally,
sick.
I'm over at Aries now in Roseville.
Okay, yeah.
And then I do the strength conditioning for 10th Planet Sacramento as well.
That's awesome.
So I'm mostly trained at Aries. But anyway, getting back to it. Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, we were just talking about the different kinds of bears. Is there a black bear, the brown bear? Brown bear, is that bigger? Or?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the brown bear is bigger, and that's the one like the stereotype, like
Like a grizzly bear?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And that would be the stereotype of like stumbling across a bear cub and then getting torn up Revenant style by the mom. That's a brown bear.
Revenant.
So when they, with black bears, if they attack, they're more predatory. So like if a black bear attacks you, you don't want to play dead. Like you hear play dead if a bear attacks. If it's a black bear, it's the opposite. If it's attacking you, it's going to kill you and eat you. It's not just going to wound you and leave you mangled so you're not a threat anymore. So with them, but... and then the scariest of all is the polar bear, because they'll actively hunt. You get in their zone, they smell you, like they can smell you from miles away, and they will actively hunt you. Like they'll follow you, So, and I don't know anything about polar bears. I've never hunted brown bear, just black bear. But that's
in California. There's quite a bit of bears, right?
Yeah.
And are brown bears prevalent?
No. I mean, which is funny because we got one on the flag, but
Right.
they used to be. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe the city of Bakersfield is named for the last man in California to be killed by a bear, maybe a brown bear. But not so much anymore.
You guys see this on Rogan's IG?
I just watched that.
Yeah, I don't even know what's going on here, but
Wait, what the fuck?
That's so if I'm not mistaken, that's a male, probably a little male bear during mating season. He's probably smelling the estrogen and being like, all right, this isn't what I expected to find when I found estrogen. But I'm not sure. That's just me guessing.
and then she has her phone out recording it the whole time.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so comfortable.
Why are they so comfortable is the question, though, because these
They're
girls...
frozen, but
Well, they're in an area where the bear are clearly well fed and used to humans, so they're not. Oh yeah, look at that.
I would still be.
He's a teenager.
I'd be definitely scared of a dog that big.
You and me both.
So you had this goal recently, and we'll circle back to some of the hunting stuff.
so
like,
it's swiping.
What's up?
Ankle pick. She's
Now
like,
all of a
all right, I'm
sudden-
good.
Yeah, she's not having fun.
That probably kind of hurt.
Fuck
'Cause
that.
That thing probably doesn't really know how to
Claws.
play all that nice. you
So
know?
funny side note, they some biologists saw a 120-pound female black bear just casually scrounging for food. She flipped over a large flat rock with her left, what they thought was her weaker paw, just very effortlessly. Went over after and weighed it, 350 pounds. 120-pound female and casual, not fight or flight, not just looking for grubs and whatever in the ground. And they weighed it was 350 pounds. Another one like right before that was 300 and something.
Man, we're weak.
Yeah.
So someone's like, I could take that. Like, nah, bro, you
No,
can't.
yeah,
No.
It's those
Holy
powerlifting
shit.
chicks.
Right.
Yeah, another thing for sure.
So you set out to do this goal more recently to do a 50-mile run and a 500-pound deadlift on the same day. Like, where did this? I know that you do some shit like this. Like something I find amazing about you is the fact that you go and do like an ultra marathon, but you're not even in a race. You just go and do it on your own. Like
I like the solos. Yeah.
that's very random and amazing. But an ultra, just to be clear, is just anything over 30 mile, anything over marathon basically is an ultra, right?
Yeah, the shortest one I've done is 50.
Right. So I think sometimes people just automatically think it's 100 miles.
No, I've only done one of those.
But
Now-
you said the shortest one you've done is 50.
Yeah, technically I've never even run a marathon. I started the first one I ever run without training was 55. And that, I mean, it was brutal on the body, the feet particularly, and I didn't know anything about shoes or anything. At the time I just wore some like Nike cross trainers. And
But decades of like pretty intense hikes and hunting bears and things like that.
early, in my like from 17 to 31, I was just a drug addict that did nothing physically stimulating at all. So in some ways, I guess maybe my body's a little more preserved than if I had been playing NFL football through my 20s. But yeah, I grew up athletic. I was born just really fast, as far as like sprinting stuff. But just kind of like Jeff's, weirdly flexible. We each got our own superpower. But I wrestled early. I played soccer up into a high, competitive and a little ODP, Olympic development program. But other than that, just normal kid stuff. We ran around. I mean, we were country kids. We ran around barefoot. We ate raccoon meat and rattlesnake and bear, all that stuff, organs before it was fashionable. Wow. So other than that, but yeah, and then, I 17 or so. I mean, I dabbled with drugs, and the Oxycontin was blowing up right about that time. So when I was 17, I got hooked, and then that became heroin, and then years as a methadone zombie as well. So I went through the whole spectrum of that experience. And then at 31, I got, that would have been 31. I'm just coming up on 4 years now. It'll be 4 years at the end of September. I quit methadone cold turkey.
What's methadone?
Methadone is it's actually a more powerful, longer lasting opiate.
It's to bridge the gap, right?
Yeah. So they give it to you because it's powerful and longer lasting. So they'll give it to you. They can give it to you once a day. And it's so powerful that it blocks out other opiates that you would try to ingest. So if you were on methadone, you went and shot heroin or whatever, you would get very little actual feedback from that heroin. The trade-off is it's really bad for your organs in the long term. At least it seems to be for a lot of people. And you're just still on a high dose of opiates.
Yeah.
So you're stable. You're not on the street. You might hold down a job at McDonald's or whatever you're doing, but you're not anywhere near. You're a shadow of yourself. At least that was my experience with it. And
how old are you now, by the way?
I'll be 35 on September 9th.
Okay.
Yeah. So, 31. I quit cold turkey, which was brutal. You're not supposed to do that, especially with methadone, because it's so powerful and long lasting that the withdrawals last a lot longer than heroin or other opiates. And then after that, you have months or even a couple years of
What kind of made you decide like this isn't for me anymore?
It's weird. People ask that question a lot, and there was I don't know. I woke up one morning and I had $40 in my pocket. I had a bag full of dope, so that like the basic immediate needs were covered. And I think maybe that was just I had that enough breathing room to think, and something just I remember distinctly just sitting there. It was probably 6 something in the morning. I'm sitting on the couch, and I just realized that like where I am now is the result of a series of bad decisions, and like that I took
your own decisions.
Yeah, and so like ironically, like it ended up being a positive thing. So I realized, I'm like, okay, well, if a series of bad decisions got me here, then a series of better decisions could take me somewhere else. And that was the first time I realized that I had the power. I wasn't a leaf in the wind. I wasn't a victim of fate. I was the one that controlled my own life and my own direction. And so from there, I started meditating a little bit. I watched the same Sam Harris YouTube clip just on repeat over and over every day, and tried to learn how to meditate. Would eventually try my first Jiu Jitsu class, and then start just trying to do basic strength conditioning stuff to stay healthy. And I hopped on the keto diet at first, and eventually would try, every nutritional thing that we've all heard come and go in the last few years. And I guess eventually that just kind of found my current training style, which is, balanced and well-rounded, or at least attempting to be. But yeah, I'll never be a champion powerlifter or a champion ultramarathon runner, but I think I can manage to do both for quite some time, and that's kind of more my speed.
Did you get overweight when you were doing the drugs, or were you underweight?
Both. I'd seen both. So when I was using, I was 160 pounds, 155 pounds. And then when I was on methadone, you get a lot of people who gain weight. They get fat. You crave sugar, and like your whole hormone and body system's out of balance. So I was like a 200 pound, I don't want to say skinny fat, but just soft, And I guess doing absolutely nothing physical.
But during that time, like 17 to 31, because you work with people on SNC, you're now a black belt, you're 35.
Still a blue belt.
Oh, you're still a blue. Okay. You're a blue belt. So what I'm curious is like, what were you doing at that time? Because like with where you are right now, you must have been doing something, learning, or I don't know.
In the last 4 years?
In the period of 17 to 31 years old, you were literally doing nothing?
No, nothing. Small asterisk. I was locked up a bunch of times earlier on, and so I would just read and do push-ups and basic stuff there.
Okay.
And I learned something called the Dub method. I released a program recently, not as a plug, but the reason I bring it up is because I learned it from a guy who had been in Pelican Bay for many years, and it was just a super high volume brute force bodyweight program.
Yeah.
And he was giant. He was he looked very similar to Francis Ngannou in height, build, stature. He was lean. He was athletic. He could do like burpees for literally an hour without stopping. And we were different races, so as far as the association goes, it had to be more kind of indirect. Like we'd work out in adjacent areas, and he'd be like, "Hey, all right, do that," you know what I mean? But we could never like.
But you guys were like homies from afar.
Yeah. And so it was cool. He was a really cool dude, and I learned a lot from him. All sorts of towel pull-ups and different rows and dips and other stuff that you would, beyond just your basic sit-ups.
Gas
push-ups.
station strong. That's what we're talking about. Some Josh Bryant type shit, right?
Yeah. Josh is a good dude. But so I did that. But again, the last time, I've been locked up since I was 19.
Yeah.
So there was, still 12, 13 years with nothing. And I read. I've always, my mind always looked for ways to escape and find solace from the thing, just like any human, going through something.
Did you have some relapses in that time? Like you set out to, you're like, I can make better decisions. I'm in control of this. And did you have some moments where you were maybe still kind of falling back into similar patterns, or were you able to kind of
in the last 4
take
years
that day and just go completely different direction?
Oh, in the last no, I haven't. And then that's the other thing too. You would like one of the daunting factors to me in getting clean for those years was like not just the getting clean, but the staying clean. Like I'm going to think about it. It's going to dog me, and I'm not. It's going to be this demon that's on my back forever. But I can honestly say I haven't had a single urge to use since that day.
Do you view yourself as an addict? Because some people will say like that it's there forever.
No, I don't. Yeah. I can drink alcohol if I want. I choose not to just because it tends to not really do much for me other than slow down my recovery. And when I watch other people drink, I've never seen someone drink and become a better person, more desirable to be around. I also don't really go out. Like my fiance and I, we're homebodies. When we have extra time, we travel, we go to dinner, we do stuff just us, and we train together. We come in here as our weekly big social outing, on the weekends. So, and we like that. So I don't feel like I'm missing out or being deprived, but I could.
And what about other drugs? Are there some things where you're like, I don't mind still doing that?
Oh yeah, like I smoke. I'm fine with cannabis, like a CBD seltzer or whatever. I'll occasionally dabble with like therapeutic doses of mushrooms. Not super often, but
I think it's important. I think for people to kind of distinguish like this stuff over here that didn't serve me well,
right.
So I'm cutting out that category of stuff. But maybe these other things over here, maybe they can serve me. Maybe they can be part of my life.
Yeah, I think it's good just to think about it logically too, because in all of human evolution and existence, we know for thousands of years or more, we've been having healthy relationships with cannabis and mushrooms. But like anything else, again, food, porn, whatever people are into, like it can take over the mind and become, a piece. You can try to fill holes with anything out there. So as far as like, do I notice smoking adversely affecting me? Smoking marijuana? Not really. I don't like to smoke, say, in the morning or whatever, something like that. But it's late in the afternoon or in the evening, I'm fine with it. Do psychedelics a couple times a year, maybe on a trip or something like that. A literal trip to nature. But like I like to be outside and doing something, and the introspection I like that separation, a little bit of ego death that comes along with it, and that objectivity that I think we all need from time to time. Because things get emotional, we get triggered, we have all these buttons.
Yeah, I wanted to. Sorry, Nsima. I wanted to ask you about like your mood and stuff, because like some people that did go down that path, they're like they have to keep going that way because that's the only time they can kind of almost feel numb at times. So, but like now today, like do you have to not rely, but do you have your things that actually, like if you are kind of feeling like a dark cloud come, that you can kind of rely on to help you not like want to go back to some of these drugs?
I train. I even independent of the drugs I've always had. I think the Irish call them black dogs. Like just sometimes it kind of runs in the family. A little cloud. You wake up with a little cloud over you, and it's your mood's a little dark. But I know that it comes and it goes from experience. I don't need an immediate fix for everything. Life it's meant to hurt. It's meant to be like Sunshine means nothing without darkness and vice versa. So you just you realize that there's going to be ups and downs, and days are going to come that you don't like. And the thing is not to really try to pass judgment on everything. Just be there for the experience and the ride.
It's not an emergency. Not an emergency to like figure out a way to be like super happy.
No, most things aren't. Right. I mean, like your family good. You know what I mean? You guys have food, shelter. Are you happy? Are you intact? The people you love, connected with you. And if the answer to that's yes, then you're probably not quite as bad off as you think you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a huge thing right there. Just like number one, being present and being okay with not feeling amazing. Because like I think especially when it comes to this, we talk a lot about self-improvement stuff, right? Yeah. And some people when they start delving down that, they're like, oh, I'm not feeling okay right now. Something's wrong. But
it won't always hit you the right way for whatever reason. Like you're trying to look for it, but it's just not there for a particular day.
Yeah, and that
it's all right.
That's fine, like but the thing I think that was so awesome about what you mentioned is like is life good? Like, is all the basic needs met? Being grateful for that. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I was able to go to Africa, Nigeria, and meet some family over there. But I can literally think of a different perspective of living where I wasn't showering with hot water for 2 months, right? And I'm just like, I'm good. I'm fucking good. You know what I mean?
Just, here you can just go, oh, that's plenty warm. That's warm enough. Or I want it to be warmer. Right? You complain that it's too hot.
Yeah.
Or like,
that's too hot.
I get to fucking go into some cold today.
My Wi-Fi is not working. It's slow today.
Right?
Well, I think if you're in a place where you have to stimulate, hardship, and you're probably in a good place, whether it's cold plunges or runs, like all the stuff we do, it's because the modern life we live doesn't provide it for. We're not hunting, we're not gathering, we're not doing this stuff all day. We have to seek it. And look how the body and the mind respond when you do.
Absolutely. I got nothing to do. I got to make shit up all day.
That's so funny. What you just said though, so like that was one of like the coolest things I've actually heard on this podcast, because we talk about like when it comes to hunger, we're just like, hey, don't freak out if you get hungry. It's gonna pass. You don't have to just drop everything and start eating right now. And we said, life is meant to be hard. Like I've heard similar things, but when you're like, it's gonna pass, like you'll be fine. I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, my mom always said, "This too shall pass," and whatever it is. So and I think it's good to remember that, because it makes it easier to stick to the fiber of who you are. You don't start freaking out and compromising and making decisions that aren't good for you in the long run. You remember, and it's gonna be fine. And I can hold to who I am and what I am, and not have to step outside of that to find fulfillment or safety.
I was talking to you one day in the gym, and you were like, you just came back from somewhere, and you were like, and I just went on a hike in Tahoe, and I was out for 12 hours or something, and I didn't really know how to get, it was kind of a long day. I didn't know how to get back. I got like semi lost for a moment, but I was with some friends, and it wasn't a huge deal. But you went out by yourself, and you were gone for like 2 weeks, and you like had no cell service, and like. Man, that's got to be like. Does that threaten you in some way, or are you you must be pretty comfortable in nature, I guess. I would be pretty scared because I wouldn't know what to do or where to go, or like, I'm sure you have stuff with you so that you can like set up shop and kind of get a tent or get somewhere where it's not cold and windy and so forth.
I'm sorry. I don't want to cut. I remember what you're about to say, but have you seen that Jordan Peele
I'm
movie, Nope? No, have you seen that movie, Nope?
Yeah.
That shit's just what goes in my head. Like,
Nope.
I hear all that, I'm just like, nope. Y'all should watch that movie.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
No.
you got to watch
Okay.
it. But yeah, go ahead, bro.
What's involved in stuff like that you're doing?
So this was the one you're referencing, was the spring bear hunt this year, and did not bring anything back. So I went up there. I thought I was pretty well prepared, and I prepared enough, but it was mid or late April, and we got hit with just a massive spring snowstorm out of nowhere. So I got up there, scouted everything, was feeling real good, found some good sign, and the next morning I woke up and I was just covered in 14 inches of snow, and I had just a pop-up tent, and so it's like, fortunately, I never go out without extra meat, extra firewood, and extra clean water. So those were fine, but everything else was pretty inadequate. I ended up being all right with the warmth because moving, I wear like good high quality gear always, and lots of wool. I don't, no cotton, anything like that. So I stayed moving during the day. You don't really notice it. and then it's you're at the fire cooking during night, and then you're in your bedroll. So it's little transitions in between. You
Having
realize
quality equipment is really important. Like if your feet get wet or some shit like that, like the smallest thing can really fuck you up because then your feet get compromised. Yeah. Once your feet get compromised, or once you're slowing down in the way that you're walking and moving, and if you're in pain, like that would just be fucking miserable.
Yeah, I would advise anyone who's getting into hunting or outdoorsmanship to buy quality first. Doesn't have to be the best thing, but buy like mid to upper quality from the get-go. You don't want
brands you suggest?
I wear KUIU stuff. They're actually from here, are Dixon, but all the guys up north wear them religiously, and I've watched their stuff hold up to the elements year after year. And then I wear Danner boots primarily. For summer, I wear some that have a Vibram sole. For winter, it's like a more traditional leather boot. But yeah, those are my go-tos. But I think, just get quality. You don't want to buy the same thing 3 times anyway. That costs at least as much, you get 3 cheapies. And then when you're out there, it's not, like you might not notice it every trip when everything's fine, but if you get caught out there, if something happens or doesn't go to plan, you're not gonna worry about the extra $19 you spent on an underlayer, So quality gear is super important. But as far as being out there alone, I go through the same little kind of loop every time I'm there, and it's like the first night you get out there and you kind of just remember how vulnerable we are, like no teeth, no claws, no fangs. I'm the slowest and weakest thing out there. So I think it's also humbling to remember that because,
do you have a routine that you settle into? Because you're like, I should keep active, and that way you're not kind of like sitting around how you haven't talked to anybody in 2 weeks.
So I hunt constantly, or scout. I'm always out with my bow, looking for sign, or on a mountain glassing or something. The main thing is I'm very sleep deprived most of the time. I try to sleep as much as I can, but it's like you got to be up early, you might be out late, and then so you try to keep up with it best you can. Your body does work. Like hunting is the hardest thing I do as far as on my body, because it's just a lot of elevation, and it's 20 miles a day over rough ground, and then 4 hours of sleep. Very rarely. Occasionally I'll see houndsmen on like the logging trails where they're going in with their dog boxes and their trucks and all that. Every now and then I'll hear hounds on a bear if it's hound season wherever I'm hunting, but generally no.
And if you do get something, you're by yourself. You gotta lug this 600-pound bear out of the woods.
That's why I do all the weighted carries, the rucking, and then the biggest thing though is the elevation, because there's just no way I live in Sacramento. There's no way to replace that, which is a big part of running the ultras, running that level of, volume is just, you can't adapt for the elevation, but you can make your aerobic base so big that even when it takes the massive hit, you can still keep going, keep performing, and more importantly, making clear decisions. Because we see, do you guys see the, I think it was the last UFC card, the main, the Edwards knockout?
Yeah.
I didn't get to see it.
So you should watch what the elevation did to a lot of the athletes on that card. And they were a lot of them went and got acclimated several days or a week or two ahead of time, still trained. Usman trains he lives and trains at like 6,000 feet or above in Colorado. So he wasn't phased by it. Everyone else, and you could see it. And even Edwards talking about it after, he was like, look, my cardio was fine. Like we had planned for that. We'd built for this. But what I didn't count on was my decision making. Everything was slower, foggier. My brain wasn't fluid like normal. And that's part of it.
Yeah. You go out on a run. Like, I've been talking about like running in the hottest part of the day, and I've had a bunch of people DM me like, you shouldn't do that, it slows you down a lot, and they send me these charts. I'm like, fuck your chart, man. I don't care. Like, so what? I'm running slower. What's the big, like, I don't care. So I think that it's a challenge, I think it also has its own benefit, specifically running at the hot part of the day. This year I did not. I've been just my schedule. I've been running mornings, and I'm I can tell the difference with how well my body tolerates the heat, and just my overall car. So I think that it does. I mean, be careful. Don't be an idiot. Have your water, your time, whatever. Don't take that as a green light to do something stupid. But I think where I run, there's like water fountains and shit. I know where I can get water.
So I think that's
emergency.
I think that has its own benefits. But yeah, so, and the thing is too, the main thing that's different if I was training for like back when I was competing in BJJ or whatever, all the other things have been is the stakes are higher. That's the main thing. Like if I fuck up out there alone, even if it's just, hey, I sprained my ankle, all right, you might be dead now. You know what I mean? Like I try, I'm GPS, you try to plan for as many of these, and hey, if I'm not back at this, if I don't rendezvous with you at this point on this day.
That must play into your head, right? So when you look at certain terrain, you might say, nope. You might look at something and say, like, if I was with some friends, maybe I would think about doing that because we could figure out a way to negotiate that together and we could kind of help each other. But, You're like, that's not worth the risk. I'm going to go around, even though it's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah, if there's that choice. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's, this is the way forward, this is where the tracks lead, and this is the steep hill.
I might die right here.
Yeah. So just, again, go slow, be smart, don't be an idiot. You know, like there's no benefit to that anyway. And just like with the way I train and everything else, quality beats quantity, at least in the long term. So.
Yeah. When you're doing this, by the way, because it just seems like when I'm thinking about it, I'm just like, there's good aspects of like taking risks with things, but you have to be like computing like chances of death 10%, right? Like, because I feel like if it ever got up to like 30, you'd be like, nope, right? I mean,
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, okay, because it is absolutely risky, and I wouldn't fuck with it unless I had like 10 other girls like you, you know, with me. But god damn,
solo hunting in general, a lot of people just don't advise it in general, but the same thing with running solo ultras without, you know, support structures, is that that's why I'm there. I'm not, you know, it's not for anything or anyone else, and that's the point, you know, like I'm there to seek that freedom and that liberty, and was the thing that drew me to running in the first place. Was not that I thought I'd be it would be, you know, do anything for my life or my specific fitness. I mean, well, that's not true. I initially I had done some road work for like MMA and Jiu Jitsu and stuff, and had always, you know, kind of as like the old school mindset that you need to do that. And then the more I did that, the more I saw it carry over. So I like having that cardio reserve. The way I roll is dynamic, high energy, a lot of transitions and constant movement. So it was nice to have that extra energy reserve. But that wasn't what drew, you know, I wasn't out there running just to have more cardio on the mat or, you know. It was just
makes your hunts more pleasurable too. Like you're not tired and
you're
exhausted. And
puking less is nice. But no, it's just the liberty.
What makes you puke? The altitude and just the duration.
Just cardio.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. It doesn't happen to me so much anymore, but it did a lot as a kid. But it was the same thing in like, you know, in wrestling practice, there were more than one, you know, at 11, 12 years old, more than one occasion where you had to run outside and puke in the rain.
Lactic acid buildup or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and especially if you don't eat intelligently. So, you know, and everyone's different, but.
Yeah, you know a lot about training in talking with you in the gym and stuff, and what you're kind of stumbling upon now with the system that you've been working on for a long time, kind of experimenting with yourself. And I'm sure you have a lot of conversations with your brother and stuff like that too, where you guys are talking all kinds of different game plans.
Oh yeah.
When you did this 500 plus pound deadlift and this 50 miles in one day, I saw the video that Ryan Soper edited together. It was really
Amazing.
Cool, inspiring. But I heard you kind of consistently, rather than just saying like, I, you know, set up this program, you said we. So like, are you like communicating with some other people and taking other people's ideas as well and kind of bringing it into your training for this particular thing? Or
I mean,
was it stuff
more than anyone, probably you? I mean, the stuff we talk about here. I mean, you helped me with the strength side of it. Like I had no strength background or anything.
Yeah, I know we did talk about it, but I'm like, I never done that before.
Well, no, you were the one. The first time I ever sumo deadlifted, which apparently was my preferred style. I mean, I deadlift both ways, but as my preferred style was, you were the one who was like, hey, you know, you should try it out. And I did, and it clicked. And I mean, Andre definitely helped me work with it, you know. But I say we, like Wild Hunt, it's mostly just me as far as the business stuff. But I have a lot of good people, friends, you know, that help or contribute something to it. And so it just doesn't seem right to be like, all right, guys, so I went out there and I did this. When I mean, there's people, you know, the guy who printed this shirt for me, and then there's, you know what I mean? There's the friends who advise me on how to run a social media account, and so you tag the relevant accounts and do your hashtag, you know, all that stuff that I had no idea. Like I'm not tech savvy at all, like all this stuff in the beginning. So it just seems disingenuous to talk about the things I've done when I've had so many good people along the way. You know?
Yeah, we were trying to talk strategy of like how to do like 500 pound deadlift in a 50 mile. You know, it just seemed like you would be dead to try to like deadlift 500 pounds afterwards.
I wouldn't. Well, just in the injury risk alone would not. I wouldn't. Yeah.
So the choice to do it beforehand seems like fairly obvious, but like fuel, you know, like fueling up and eating, and we discussed some of that. And I think one big mistake people make with competition a lot of times is they think they need to do something in particular on the day that's like different than what they're used to, and that's probably the biggest mistake on a run or jiu-jitsu. I can't imagine in jiu-jitsu like eating something that just doesn't agree with you.
You see that with
that's got to be a disaster.
You see that with runners who try to do all these gels and stuff, you know what I mean? That their stomachs aren't
They're
used
in
to
the
it.
bathroom the whole time.
Oh yeah, if they're lucky enough to have a bathroom nearby. I've seen some things go another way on that. But you know, they're ducking off trails, and it just, you know, so I do the same thing I always do. Same thing, you know, competing in Jiu Jitsu and anything I do the same thing. I bring some extra electrolytes, extra food, whatever I'm going to need to replace what I use. I figured out a pretty decent way to kind of calculate. Oh, this might be useful to you for running. When your runs go, well, I can't take entire credit for this. There's a rugby coach named Jack Taylor out of Britain who I've actually learned a lot of good stuff from him. He's a really good dude, and he was one of the first to, for no benefit of his own, support me when I was starting out.
Oh, cool.
But it is essentially after the first hour, if your run goes longer than 1 hour, for every hour after that, you'll want to have about 200 to 300 calories, 8 to 10 grams of protein, 16 ounces of water, and some electrolytes. So that kind of helps give you an idea about how much you're going to need to, you know, carry with you on.
Is there a body weight component?
I'm using the range to kind of compensate for most of that. Okay. So it's like, you know, 8 to 10, 200 to 300, you know what I mean? But yeah, so like if you're going to get into it, we'd talk. I might have you bring a little extra with you.
It is interesting because like it doesn't matter how much fuel you have in your body. Once you have put an output out there, regardless of your conditioning, because if you're conditioned well, that will probably mean your output will be higher. Yeah. And you'll probably be moving faster, so you'll be similarly fatigued as somebody that is maybe heavier and slower, because the effort is still.
Things do scale for sure.
Yeah, the effort is still high, so it's like you at some point you kind of do need fuel. I went out on a run the other day, and it took me like around 2 hours, and as soon as I got to like that 2 hour mark, like my legs started to, I was like, oh god damn.
Well, there's also, how about the quality of your run? Like if you stop and you get down an Aussie bite in a little way or whatever, you know what I mean? After an hour, that second hour, you know, I mean, let it digest, do whatever you got to do. But that second hour, the quality of that second hour of training is going to be higher too. And your experience with it is probably going to be higher too.
What type of stuff do you carry with you? Like specifically to meet those needs of the electrolytes, of protein, what do you take?
I actually use a lot of the electrolytes from here, or just the Element or whatever. Those are the two brands I've liked. The liquid IVs are fine, but the two that I like are the Within You and the Element. I do Aussie Bites or a piece of fruit.
Aussie Bites?
Yeah, they're just these little, I get them at Costco. They're these little bites. It's like dried dates, some dried seeds, and you know what I mean, stuff like that, coconut. And I just like, they're tasty. They're easy to get down. It's clean energy. They're pretty dense. And so I'll throw a couple of those in, or just like a plum or something like that. Because I like peaches and plums on like the hot runs, you know? And
those taste so good.
So good. So good.
Why do you like those versus the gels? Because runners love gels, right? And they have calories. So why do you like those more?
I don't know. I like real food in general. Most of my protein of the day comes from like actual food. I drink whey and
People
stuff.
are obsessed with those gels.
Is it like
those goo packs?
Yeah, that's them.
Well, I've had those before. Those are dangerous, bro.
And Nsima didn't know those
just
were for running.
Those
Those are supposed to be for running.
Yeah, no.
And one box is in a serving.
I fucked up one of my friends. Like she had that, and I just ate like almost the whole thing.
I went through a phase where I was taking those. I was drizzling MCT oil on the top and then sprinkling that cinnamon roll flavor god. Oh my god! And they make them individually packaged too, so I'll throw a couple in there.
Like each one's like 600 calories.
Yeah, they're like 150, but yeah, pretty good.
They're so good.
Pretty good.
You're supposed to swim to Australia to earn the right to eat some of these.
So unrelated, I just bought a share in Aussie Bites, and no, that's just but yeah, they're good. Piece of fruit's fine too.
Yeah.
Most of what I eat is pretty heavily on the fruit and meat and veggies, seafood stuff. You know what I mean? So I stick with it. I'm not like no restrictive dieting, but I just find my body likes kind of the realer, more primitive foods better in general.
You still have time for jiu-jitsu?
Oh yeah. I'm training right now, probably more than I have in a while. Last few months since I did the deadlift ultra, I just kind of took some time to get back into grappling, since I hadn't been able to. I mean, through the prep for the deadlift ultra, I'd been grappling like twice a week or something, you know, but I kind of missed it and wanted to make it more of a priority. And then I took the time to do some prehab, like I have a shoulder, a hip thing. My hips are a little crooked. So just, you know, little things that kind of I'd been ignoring for a while that were starting to pile up. But feeling good now. So probably going to start lifting heavier again. And But yeah, jiu-jitsu has finally been more of a priority. Been kind of diving into some of the leg lock game in ways before that I've always been pretty good at defending them, but now I'm trying to understand the Craig Jones speak of it all.
No, that's good because that shit's where all competition's going anyway. It's fucking annoying because it's annoying to watch.
Yeah.
It's not fun to watch people just fucking
sitting 50-50.
Yeah. No. But that's where it's going. Yeah. But I did want to ask you about the 50 miles. How long around did that take?
It was like 13:47, something like that, which
running for 13 hours. I mean, you stopped like once or twice, right?
Yeah, so I gave myself exactly a 5-minute window to resupply twice at 15 and 38 miles. And that was just that was calculated exactly how long it would take to have Janae change my socks, refill my Camelback, all that. And then that's the second one where I sat down, which I knew better too. It's like
13 hours.
I knew better. Yeah. And so, but the thing was, I wanted to break 12 in the back of my mind. It wasn't like an established goal, but I was hoping to break 12. I will. But I wanted to break 12 because they say like, if you can run 100 miles in 24 hours, you're doing all right as far as pace. And I'm like, all right, well, if I can hang with that pace, that'd be nice. And I was killing it. I was on track to smash that until I sat down. And then that last 12 was, I feel like it took about as long as the 38 before it. So.
Some real fuckery with that, like I've been out on a bunch of runs recently where I just kind of start out. I usually start out the same way. I usually just kind of like go, and then I'm like, let me see what's available for today. Yeah. And then I start to kind of get into it more. I try not to obsess over like times or anything like that, but
that's good.
Sometimes you're just moving and you're like, oh, I'm moving pretty good today. And you pick up the pace and I'm like, man, I'm fucking kicking ass today. Yep. And then like 20 minutes later, I'm like, I'm not doing so great.
There's waves. It's you ride the wave.
And your brain too. Your brain is all like on fire. It's like I chugged a mind bullet or something. It feels like everything's just fire and fire and fire. And then it's like, this isn't a good idea anymore. You should fucking go home.
So that's its own thing. But for sure, the longer you run, the more pronounced that gets. The ups and the downs. Yeah. But the thing is, just like we were talking, like this is going to pass.
Yeah, you can control
when you're at the bottom and it sucks, and you know you're going to be back at the top before long. It might be an hour. It might be 3 minutes, but you're going to be back. You'll be all right. Mm-hmm. But that. Admittedly, sometimes once you get closer to like your actual limits as far as just what your body can do, the mind really starts to try to save itself.
And I've noticed this is a good idea, or that's why I'm a big proponent of like trying to run in a lot of different areas. Mm-hmm. I think it's important because when you see like that you're getting close to the finish, that's when the pain will come in a little bit more. You're like, oh man, I'm close. And whether it's like a let up or whether you're just like excited because you're about to finish, even if you're thinking like I'm going to finish strong, I think you're better off being like oblivious. Yeah. Sometimes, not for all your training, but sometimes.
I mean, I set my biggest PRs in the gym when I'm not paying attention to the weight. Right. So I'd say the same thing. I hit the flow. Like I'm jiu-jitsu, lifting, running. I love the flow state. I try to find that and just ride it. I ride that wave But like I said, it comes. There's ups and there's downs, and eventually, sometimes you do have to, do some powerful self-talk or some imagery or whatever, in anything, not just running or training. But Goggins talks about like the Rocky movies being like the piece of imagery that he uses. Mm-hmm. I think for everyone it's different. And I think once you find yours, even if you're not a runner, it's a powerful tool. With me, it was more. I've always kind of. Admired feats of will as much as strength or endurance or anything else, and sacrifice. So like the story of the 300, that's always just made my skin stand on end. Or there's stories of Native American warriors when the cavalrymen were coming on the village and they needed to buy time for the women and children to escape. They'd drive a stake. A line of them would line up and drive a stake into the ground in between them and the village and the cavalrymen. And each would tie a rope to one end of the stake and tie the other end to himself and just swear to die on that ground, and he'd fight to the last. And so stuff like that has always been something that moved me.
Yeah, you're like, somebody's done shit way harder than
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can run for a day or for, until things stop working if they did that. And so sometimes it helps whatever your thing is. And for me, it's just when I feel that, when I know it's not just riding the wave anymore, when I know things are starting to shut down and they, parts of my body kind of stop working. That's the time when I mentally draw a line in the sand and I picture everything that I love and care about and everything that I could be, everything that I am on one side of the line and everything that wants to take that away or compromise that on the other. And I just make the decision to die on that line and hold that line no matter what. And more often than not, once you do that, you get, I mean, if you're truly, truly willing to make that sacrifice, it's liberating. And after that, you know, you hold, and you do whatever it takes. And if you fail, that's fine, but at least die like a man on your feet, you know? So, but like I said, different for everyone.
Yeah, no, but again, like what you just did there is, it's another aspect of like literally being grateful for what you're doing at that moment in time. And also like, number one, what you're doing is fucking, it's amazing. And it is badass.
Oh,
but your mind goes to literal people sacrificing themselves and then just being like, this shit ain't so bad. Fucking be a man and run through it. Yeah. It's your ability to change your perspective out of what you're doing. I think that's like the big talent in it all, because we're always zoned in on us. But you constantly take yourself out of it and just be like, that's way better, or that's so much, or that's what we need to get better at, because we're always focused on what we're doing, focused on ourselves, focused on our actions.
Yeah.
But you have an amazing skill of removing yourself and thinking about different perspectives that makes you grateful.
I mean, I agree, and I appreciate that. I never really thought of that as a skill, but I think you might be right. You know,
that's a skill.
Yeah,
it's definitely a skill, because like you can also like listen to Rocky or do something like that, and you can get fired up, and you can be like, I'm gonna like go harder, I'm gonna try harder, and that can work sometimes. But a lot of times, that'll also kind of stress the body a bit. And sometimes,
you can.
Sometimes you're opening yourself up to an injury, or just getting overheated, or whatever the fucking case may be.
So it's like. And it's a superpower. Use it when you should. You know, if you're super strength and you're running around trying to pick stuff up all the time, you're gonna, you know. But if you're utilizing it for that, so it's like I wake up every day. I come in here to lift. I go to jits. I run. I box. Do whatever I'm doing, and I don't hype myself. Like, this is exactly who I am and where I'm supposed to be. It requires no hype and no nothing. I can come in and do this with, you know, I don't take pre-workout. I don't listen to heavy metal in the parking lot. I just come and do what I'm meant to do. Having said that, if you do that and you push yourself and you're truly, truly finding the edge of your comfort zone and going beyond what is safe, you're going to find some times where you have to call on those, you know, those extra resources. But yeah, I'm not waking up every day and like, all right, you know what I mean? I'm Ragnar Lothbrok and this is the last stand of the, you know what I mean? Like, no, I'm just a guy. I'm just a dude, you know, most of the time, but occasionally.
How did you learn about like the history of strength? Because I've been in some conversations with you before, and you've mentioned even earlier today, you were like, oh, they used to do these 6-day races where they would just like run for 6 days straight. Like, how did you kind of stumble upon some of this stuff? It seems like you're like very fond of those things. Like, how did you discover some of that?
I mean, that's a big part of my page. Originally, before there was even a business aspect, that was just me, just some guy randomly posting on old, you know.
Yeah, it's all over your
Instagram.
Stuff. Yeah, it's really cool.
But I blink in there. He was a dope wrestler and MMA fighter, if you didn't know. But you know, I've always been interested in history, and I've always been interested in training, and so it seemed like a natural combination of the two. You hear some cool stories here or there, or anecdotes, and you kind of want to know if they're true, or you know, you want to know if the Spartans really did eat 2 meals a day instead of the 4 that was conventional in ancient Greece at the time, and you know, oh yeah, Hicks in there. Look at that when in his prime. What a man.
Dude, your page is such a good reference for education, though, man. Like,
people should know these names and know these people. Yeah,
everyone needs to go follow, because like there's so much shit that I don't know. Like that's just here. You know, this is dope.
Oh, I appreciate it. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's the stuff that you find. Oh, that's the longest boxing match in history. That's another one. That was
How long did that go?
It was like 8 hours something. It was 108 rounds. One of the guys had broken every bone in both hands.
Just sitting there punching each other the whole time.
Yeah. Savage.
You gonna give up? Nope. No. I'm not gonna give up either. Just keep fucking punching each other.
Yeah, I'm good on that. But
shit.
So yeah, just the stuff fascinates me and interests me, and also from a training aspect, I think we tend to get kind of myopic. We focus on when we want to learn training data, when we want to, you know, find facts and stats, we look at the most recent study, and I think that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that for sure.
It can be exciting sometimes, yeah.
It is, but I think we have thousands of years of data. I mean, from the Greeks and the Romans to before that, you know what I mean? We understand how people react to certain diets. We understand how people train certain ways. And, like none of this is new. Like
It's not lack of knowledge.
No.
Why, the reason why we're fat is not lack of knowledge.
No, I mean, even literally none of this is new too. Like the vegan versus carnivore debate, that was going on in ancient Greece. And one year, if a Olympic champion was a carnivore, half the athletes in Greece would follow. The next year it'd be a vegetarian. The same thing would happen. You know what I mean? Like this is not
Sick.
This is not new, literally. And they're like, oh, dude, that Spartan guy who won the Pankration last year only eats meat and dairy. It's like, all right, so we're nothing under the sun is new, as they say.
Yeah.
This whole leg lock game we're talking about, that's not new either. I have a post on about the history of the heel hook. That's ancient Greece. Some guy was doing it because he was smaller than everyone. He kept getting trampled in Pankration fights.
Really?
He learned how to catch a heel hook from underneath. He saw an oracle who he asked an oracle like, "Hey, I'm getting fucked. There's no weight limits, by the way." He's like, "I'm getting fucked up. How do I fight these bigger guys?" And the oracle told him by being trampled upon. And he didn't really know what they were talking about. And then in one fight, he was getting trampled upon. He caught a little ashi or some sort of entanglement from the bottom and lifted that heel. Yep.
Probably high on some mushrooms.
Probably. But went on to be undefeated, by the way, too.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, just catching heelys on everyone.
That's actually what you're talking about is really cool because I didn't know that people actually knew much about pankration. Every time I've heard about pankration, it's like people are like, oh, well, we don't know much about it. But
so I've actually had a good conversation with John Donaher about this, and we both kind of settled into the conclusion that we can't really be sure what the level of their skill was, but that most likely it was very high because we're talking about centuries of evolution here.
Yeah.
We're talking about massive resources and time, energy, food. We know like their strength conditioning stuff, their nutrition was on par with our own outside of the cutting edge science for measuring a lot of the specifics, So it's probably pretty high. Do we know, like reconstructing a lot of the holds and stuff? We know there was punches, it was MMA. We also knew that you could grab someone's balls and twist. You could do a lot, you know what I mean? Like it was a different level of
Krav Maga.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But very dusty. So yeah, we can't be sure on some of it, but you can tell, you know what I mean? Especially when you see a picture of some guy heel hooking a centaur, you're like, oh, well, okay, toes in the armpit, lift the heel, and we know what happens then.
God damn.
But
What was going on with these 6-day races you were talking about?
So that was a trip. I haven't done too much of a deep dive, but yeah, so this is 1800s or the late 1800s. It was kind of a fad, 6-day races, and so people would get real kind of shady with these. PEDs were a huge thing. Nitroglycerin and cocaine particularly. And just to keep them awake and stimulated. There were also a lot of the races you'd see going on from there and later too. It's like they didn't really understand how respiratory systems reacted to like car exhaust, especially primitive engines of the day. So you'd be running for a day or 6 days and there'd just be a car shadowing you the whole time that's just putting out black smoke. And they're like, all right, so, how do you feel? So, some journalist, and you're just like dying. And then, sniffing poppers and cocaine and whatever
Guy with
else.
a curly mustache.
Yeah. Hey, son, hey. Flipping a coin under a street lamp. So they got squirrely. And then I believe that there was also a big thing at the first attempted female 6-day race because everyone thought it was inappropriate. And so people were just the whole time just mobbing it and messing with them. But the crazy thing was these people back then, they ran in like dandy clothes. Like there's guys, like pictures of guys running with like a cane and like hats and you know what I mean? It's like, and then they'd talk about how like mile 60, their feet were bleeding over the track. And it's like, yeah, you think? You're wearing, you're wearing high heels and a powdered wig now.
Oh my God.
But yeah, and there was also, again, just did a post on this by coincidence, but the British they called them pedestrians. Ultramarathon runners at the time were called pedestrians.
Okay.
And the British initially were the leaders in that field. Like they were putting out the best athletes. And they started hearing kind of weird, troubling reports coming from America of guys doing hundreds of miles. This guy ran 200 miles, this, and they're like, no way, son. First of all, this is our game. Second of all, that's just not possible. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So there was kind of like a PR, about a trash talking by telegram or ship mailed, for a while, going back and forth. And eventually they set up a duel. America's top guy, or second top guy, I think, was going to come duel the British guy, and they were just going to be a track. It was like a horse racing track, spectators with umbrellas and refreshments, the whole thing.
And what year was this?
late 1870 something. It's on the post, but I can't remember.
How far down or how recent was the post?
It's the one with that kind of psychedelic picture I put on there. I just did it like the other day or last night maybe. So I said somewhere in there.
Yeah, 1876.
There you go. And these two guys just went around this track over and over and over again, and the American guy ended up winning. By the other guy, the wooden track was just messing their feet up. So the other guy at like mile 60 something had to tap out. His feet were just like literally socks were soaked with blood and this whole thing. And then the American guy hit 100 miles or whatever. Because I think it was just they were gonna see who could do the most in 24 hours or something like that, a allotted time limit. But they had some crazy stuff like that, and then the drugs in general led to a lot of like hallucinations and other weird stuff in a lot of these competitions.
What's up, Power Project family? It's time to stop dressing like you're a fucking preschooler and step your game up by checking out Viore clothing. Now, I'm not one to talk. I wear a fucking pink hat that has a dog on it, but at the end of the day, at least my shirt and shorts are popping. So head to Viore because they have great stuff for your top and your bottom. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, you guys got to head over to viore.com/power project. That's VUORI.com/power project, and you guys will automatically receive 20% off your order. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes. Let's get back to the podcast.
You know what's really cool about this though? I honestly think this about modern day lifting specifically. When people look at like the research and they talk about how much you should be doing and fatigue, I get it, and I'm not in the camp of thinking that people should be unsafe or do too much, but a lot of the history kind of shows like people were doing a lot and getting by just fine. And the cool thing I think is that it shows that you can do much more than you think you're doing. And I think when people focus in too much on research, it kind of stifles them in their progress because they're like, this is optimal, and once I go over this, I can't do anymore. And then they have something in their head that's telling them don't do more, you know?
I agree. And also, look at these guys. You can't cry PEDs. PEDs weren't even invented. I mean, like testosterone, like you can't be like, oh, well, that guy was juicing, so okay, they didn't exist, you know. So I would agree, and I think it's just, I mean, of course, people are capable more than they think they are, but a lot of it is just how you organize your stuff too. You know, like if you're gonna go squat every day, like you're probably gonna be pretty limited in some of the things you can do. But if you find a way to organize that training, diversify, and get your body acclimated to it, like you can do a lot. And that's kind of the whole principle of the wild hunt stuff we do, is finding a symbiotic way to fit together lifting, running, and athleticism.
There's also one other big factor in all of this. Lifestyles were much different. Yeah. People were using their bodies more. Kids, adults were not sitting for hours and hours and hours and then just going to it. Like people used their bodies more. So they probably just had a better awareness of doing more and an ability to do more because they weren't sedentary all the time.
I mean, personally, I think they were hunting bear in the mountains with hounds. So, but yeah, I think so. Oh yeah, Chinese strength training. That was some interesting stuff. You can see a stone. Look at the stone barbells.
Do you run?
Pretty sick.
Oh yeah, almost like kettlebells.
Yeah, they called them stone locks, and they were used pretty similarly.
Do you run weighted sometimes, like weighted vests and things like that? Or
no, I run and then I ruck separately. So it's like
ruck is just like a hike with weight.
Yeah, literally a good pack, preferably one with 1 or 2 cross straps.
Any good brand, because like people are gonna want to.
No, not one that I'd recommend. Like if you're gonna be hunting and you're willing to drop a bunch of money, then the Kufaru International packs are the way to go. But as far as rucking, I mean, I wouldn't be rucking in mine anyway. But I think I have like an Osprey hiking pack. I put a towel in it and a 62-pound kettlebell, and I go for a walk. I mean, I built up to that. I think so. If you're looking to start rucking, for women, 15% of body weight. Men, 20% is a good starting point. Scale from there. Start with a mile. If that feels okay, go a little longer. Never add weight and distance or incline at the same time. So it's like if you were looking to progress in one session, go a little heavier. The next, go a little longer. And then the next, add a little incline, So you want to vary that. But overall, I think rucking's great, especially because a lot of people have joint issues that prevent them from running effectively or for long periods of time, or maybe they're just turned off by the idea. But a ruck is just a hike or a walk with a little weight in the back. Maybe it's just a baby in the back, baby in a pack on your back or whatever it is.
You ever mess with like moving it around, like putting it on the front or anything like that? Or
like how would a good weighted, like would a good weighted vest count as rucking, or that's not?
So no, it would, yeah. And I have some of my athletes that use them just for expediency or for whatever reason, but you just can't load them quite as heavy, you know. So there is that limitation after 50 pounds or whatever.
Yeah.
But no,
Maybe a little safer on the body just because you're not like leaning forward as much or whatever it might be. Right?
It is. I don't do like I don't move the pack around to the front much, but I train like a big staple of our training is doing everything in 4 directions. So, you know, I do my weighted carries forward, backwards, even move to the side. Same thing with sleds, same thing with everything else. And because of something I picked up from judo training, they do a lot of carries, partner carries on the back, on the front, moving forward, moving backwards. So I do a lot of that stuff. I'm also really big on Zercher carries and Zercher marching. So front loading is there, and then front squatting as well. I have a saying that the extensors are the tibs, the tibialis muscles of the forearm or of the arms, and I think they're frequently undertrained.
Yeah, the opening of the hand.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the front properly, you know, full range of motion, the front squat is one of the best things you can do for that.
Can you do that again real quick? There's some definition in your forearms, man, that you don't typically see in people. Look at the top part of his hand.
Oh, yeah.
Like that area, like you don't see that on people.
Yeah,
You can just tell you do some different type of training.
Yeah, fingertip push-ups, chin-ups, which, you know, everyone's pull-ups better than a chin. It's like anything else, change your grip, vary it up. Front squats, I do a lot of stuff with my hands, clubs, and I did a lot of years of manual labor. But I found that by training the extensors, Jiu Jitsu specifically, your grip's stronger, but more than that, the fingers just do a lot better. They're not so torn up. Your hand, like anything you connect your hand to works better, whether it's bench press. Yeah. So you get the same, just like, you know, doing your tib raises for your lower body, you get your, you know, increased strength and stability through the knee and ankle, less injury. You get all that, all the same benefits training your extensors in your arms with the added benefit of grip. You know?
And then a Zercher, like, do you advise people to use like med balls and sandbags, or you want them to use a barbell? Or
I use a barbell, use that as a baseline, but I think like anything else, you should change. You should change the load. Like, I'm sure you know, some people say like deadlifting is bad or good. Like I don't understand the argument for that, because there's 4 basic human movement patterns. There's push, pull, hinge, and squat. And I think to be a healthy human being, even if you're not an athlete, you should be able to do all of them, at least with body weight or some minor load. Doesn't mean your grandma has to, you know, deadlift a heavy barbell, but she should be able to pick up the laundry without pain. You know what I mean? So I think the best way to do that is to vary the load. I tend to focus more on the heavier stuff just because I prefer that. And the way we train is kind of by taking the minimum effective dose of the maximum effective methodologies from each different thing and combining them into a more well-rounded template.
I think most things get a bad reputation from all the same spot, you know, like whether it be CrossFit or deadlifting or squatting, it's usually a case of somebody doing something they're not currently prepared for. Yes. So it's just people just overdoing it. Like, you know, of course, if you did a 5x5 and you jumped into powerlifting and you never had any experience, God bless you.
Thank you.
You never had any experience with that and you got yourself hurt. Of course, you're going to be like, well, I don't think that that's a great movement. And there's some people that have tried to utilize something like deadlifts for their sport and they're like, oh, it really slowed me down. But it's like, well, how long did you try to use it for? How did you utilize it? How did you load?
Form, volume, et cetera.
Maybe you were trying to do it in season and maybe you were trying to lift heavy too early. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can do it.
Well, things get demonized, movements in particular, which is weird. Nothing more than the bent press. You know, like that's an old-fashioned strongman move we never seen. Bent press, and by the way, I haven't confirmed this, but I have a theory that it might be the best upper body pressing movement for judo athletes, and therefore have good cardio.
It's kind of the origin of a bench press, really.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of one-arm barbell pressing. The bent press is going to be more. You're adding some rotation to it, so. You're not pressing up, you're pressing yourself down here, and you're coming inward, and then lifting the weight by corkscrewing up.
Right. I love doing that with kettlebells, but I've never done that with the barbell. That requires so much more stabilizing.
So I love one-arm barbell presses. It's a staple of all my programming, even if you're just doing a straight press.
I believe it used to be called a bent press, too, to do both, right? To do both. That used to be like an Olympic lift, I believe.
No, I know there was an old
continental lift.
I didn't know that.
Ended up being like a bent press because I think that's what people were calling it, because they would take the weight and they would hike it up onto their belt, and then they would lean back, and then they got rid of it eventually because there were some people that were like our guest that we just had here recently that could literally bend over backwards so well that they could kind of like cheat the weight up.
I've never heard of that. That's cool, though.
I've seen what you're talking about on like some old school, like there was a wider stance. And it was like,
Yeah.
like that. That's
Yeah.
how they would do that.
Huh.
It might have even been part of powerlifting. Now that I'm thinking about it, there might have been an extra lift in there somewhere, which I think might have got replaced with a bench press. But I don't.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is that Pablo?
Oh, yeah.
Observe.
He's
Comrade.
He's the one to watch. Look at this mobility. I can't do anything like that.
That's bizarre. Yeah, he's insane the way that he can move.
Oh, yeah. I'm a fan for sure.
Yeah, but this is something real. Like I do this with kettlebells a lot, but doing it with the barbell. How do you get the barbell up?
I just use a squat rack. I come under it. I find my hand grip, like my shoulder. I step out and then press from there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So in terms of what you're thinking in terms of the best, like I guess pressing movement for grapplers, et cetera. Why do you believe that's
It was
case?
more of an intuition initially, but then I started seeing some of the benefits of just one-arm barbell pressing in general from my own training, and then the
Shit.
that.
Wow.
Look at that. The rotational aspect. God, yeah, I'd like to. That's a goal of mine. Plates.
That's 135.
Yeah, that's my goal. That's one of the next things I'm going after.
Get into it. Oh, he just had it on the
watch
side.
Nsima, watch mechanically. Watch the lift.
Whole
Look at the
body's
hip, the hip engagement, the core, while the pressing and the stability through the shoulder and upper back.
Yeah.
Looks a little sketchy on the way up. Or actually, maybe not.
It's not sketchy. With his form, it's not.
Yeah, and they say, like, I can't verify this, but they say it's pretty easy to bail on, like an unsuccessful.
Chuck it forward, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Chuck it backward, you're getting Kimura.
Yeah.
By
a barbell.
I've had a Kimura turned all the way around, and that was actually how I set the 500 the goal to deadlift 550 miles in the same day. Was I just had. It wasn't even like I didn't even get caught. I was passing a guard and a guy desperately threw a Kimura up and was trying to hold it back.
Yeah.
It was my bad shoulder. This was before I did any PT or anything at all, and I was just like, nah, I'll be good. I just passed his guard anyway, and I didn't know. That's fine. I was fine. Everything went, passed the guard. Everything went fine after that, and then afterward, I was like cleaning up the mats, and I went to it, and I was like, oh, that's worse than usual,
Oh,
and then it was New Year's Eve, so me and Janae and a couple of our friends headed up to a cabin. And it was kind of like dogging me in by the nighttime. I was like, okay, that's bad enough. Like, I don't take ibuprofen normally for anything. And so I was like, that's bad enough. I'm going to take 2. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and it was just on fire.
Oh, shit.
And Janae took a look and the whole side of the back was swollen up in here. And it turned out that the rotator cuff and bicep tendon had both gone. Not completely, but like, grade 2. I think they said tears in both. And so that weekend we had just been eating a buddy of mine had been eating some venison. We were hanging out at the cabin and just talking about how you didn't really see much with athletes who could do both. Like, we were aware of a couple, like, I think they had backgrounds in football or rugby, but guys that did some impressive, like, squat totals and then would run a sub 5 mile.
Yeah.
So, like, that was kind of cool, but didn't really interest me too much. And then I had at the time, no real lifting background. I'd done kettlebell stuff mostly for grappling and some basic athletic strength conditioning, but like my deadlift form was terrible. I wasn't a technical lifter. I'd never even tried I had no idea what my max was. So it just seemed like a cool way to learn new things, challenge myself, and then become well-rounded because, the idea of being a fighter that's going to be strong, at 180 pounds, I'm going to be stronger than mostly than everyone that I compete against. And I just don't get tired now because I run, you know what I mean? My aerobic base is so deep that, even after sustained explosive action, I'll still recover quicker than the next guy, know?
You know what's really cool though too, like after you had that injury, we've talked about how people deal with injuries on the podcast quite a bit. A lot of people, when something happens, they'll do their rehab and shit, but it'll really maybe take some people, they end up quitting, or it takes them out of the thing that they really like, or they fall into a massive depression because they can't do that thing. Right. But you have so many modalities of things that you do that, like, if something happens to jiu-jitsu, you can just turn and fucking go take a run for a few days.
Oh, I ran a marathon the next day after the show.
What?
Yeah. No, sorry. I take that back. A buddy of mine had wanted to set a distance goal for some time. His goal had been 10. And then I took him out on a run, and then I think I went on another run myself in the evening.
Yeah.
But so yeah, yes, you just running. I wasn't super into archery yet, so that didn't feel like something missing. But I got back to jiu-jitsu pretty quickly with just drilling. I'd even go and just watch guys roll, and just try to understand things, because it's just the academic study is something I think people overlook a lot with with everything, but with grappling in general. But yeah, I mean, it sucks, man. You want to roll, and then it's like, your friends are getting ready for Master Worlds or something, or you know what I mean, or you go and you visit another city with a cool jiu-jitsu place, and you want to go in and train, and you can't, and so I mean, it sucks, but it's it's not forever. I use it as an opportunity to learn everything I could about shoulders and shoulder health, and I think stuff like that, it mostly pisses me off. Like like the obstacles mostly, they don't really discourage me. I mostly feel kind of like slighted or insulted. That's like, oh, you think you can actually stop me from doing this? Like, okay, I'm turning it up now. So I never, injuries suck.
That's a Jordan move. That reminded me of The Last Dance, where he's like, he did you ever watch The Last Dance?
I haven't yet, but I intend to.
You have to.
I've heard it's amazing.
There's a funny fucking part where he talks about like, there's multiple references to how like he would make up foes and make up narratives to piss him off before, like, even if an opponent didn't do shit, he'll be like, I remember when that guy said this shit to me, I'm gonna fuck you up this game. And then there was a player who's like, I never did anything to him.
I didn't insult your wife. Like, what's going on, man? He calls him the wrong name. But that's exactly what I do. With me, it's not so much people as your demons, your mistakes, these things that, we're humans. We anthropomorphize everything and emotionalize things anyway. So maybe it's not that surprising. But yeah, and it's me, and it goes back to drawing the line. Sometimes it's a line you draw in the sand, and other times it just draw a circle, and you just swear that nothing, not even me, is going to leave this alive until the job's done. And it's really sometimes as simple as committing like that, and everyone's got to find their cue, whatever it is.
Are you very particular with like how you train for how you train on certain days, or do you kind of just go out and like, let me kind of see how the body's feeling, because you train so often?
Both. Yeah, I train every day. And it's not like I train 7 days a week, and some of those are multiple times a day, but it's not like I'm going out and just, like it's a bit of both, to answer your question. So I think you got to self-regulate. I think that's a huge part of training in general, because your 85% on a day when you just got over the flu is going to be different than an 85% when you ate, showered, you woke up, and your girl told you, whatever, and got you going. And like, you're going to feel different. 85% is relative to the day. And which is also where I try to do most of my, like, the heavy compound movements. I like 3 sets of 3 at 85 is a really good baseline, because I can still do that. I can go grapple, I can run. I'm still getting strong. Like, progressive overload still works at lower volumes at 85%. It doesn't have to be 24 heavy singles to get stronger. So I try to self-regulate, but I have a framework. It varies a little bit season to season. Right now we're going into bear season, so there's going to be more archery and more running. But archery, I just plug in as an active recovery session for upper body, and 2 birds with 1 stone, which is, again, a big part of what I always try to do. Same thing with the extra rucking I'm doing will be more recovery for, lower body lifts, and but mostly just with small variations, but the template stays pretty much the same. I lift, I run, I grapple, some sort of other skills training on the side, usually archery, and I do some functional stuff and some active recovery stuff, and that's about it. Do
you actively mess with like mobility stuff, like stretching and things like that?
Yeah, so I stretch a little bit usually after grappling, but I find that just the basic mobility stuff is great. Just getting your body to move and break a lot of these patterns we're stuck in every day. You don't have to be Ido Portal or anything crazy, but just move. You get on the ground and move like an animal. Pick a different animal every 30 seconds for a couple of minutes. Maybe do a little stretch, work anything that feels tight. But ironically, the best thing I've found for improving your range of motion and joint health is lifting weights through a full range of motion with a moderate load consistently. And I haven't found, I've done everything. Yoga, stretching, mobility, those are all parts of my routine in small doses. But like, nothing's going to get your lower back and your hips to feel better than just getting really good at a deep Bulgarian split squat, or, a lot of these things.
Yeah, you think about like, what's the advantage of having somebody assist you, an assisted stretch? Well, it's just pressure, and then can you get the same pressure from doing a squat? And then can you start to look at your squat as if it is stretching, and then maybe your interpretation of the way that your squat looks is different.
Right.
Maybe you're doing a staggered stance. Maybe you're You know, you can just choose like so many different ways. You don't have to like. I think we're always thinking like, okay, both feet are going to like be facing that wall, and I'm going to be moving this way. And you could have, you know, just like a offensive tackle or something. You could have one foot slightly back, one foot slightly in front of the other, and you can squat that way. And you can go wide stance, close stance, and you can really have a variation of the way that you're moving. And if you think about it that way, then it's probably going to help increase your mobility.
I think it will. I think it'll help increase the support structures in general. And even if you were a competition power lifter who was going to squat, bench, and deadlift in the same hand position, the same, you know, every time, I still think it's good to train outside those ranges of motion. I've known, I mean, you got to find proper dose and not spend all your time doing that as opposed to, you know, doing your prime training. But I've only had good results with introducing small doses of alternate training that address the same issue from a different angle.
You know, there's a trend with the type of people that we've had come in, and one of those things is just exploring new things. Like there's Adriel Mays, every goddamn Dre, who like does a lot of kettlebell movements that you see that are very unconventional, but like those things work for him, and they allow him to find new ranges and new things to work on. We just had this human garage people come in, and a big aspect of what they do a lot of body work, and they have people do body work on themselves. But one of the biggest concepts within that is like when you do some of the things that these guys talk about, and you guys may have already seen the podcast or some of the videos, is you're putting your bodies in positions that you probably have never put yourself in. Maybe the last time you did was since you were a kid.
Yeah, you frequently see that, yeah.
Absolutely. And then you're like, oh, wow, I feel this. And the same thing with what you're talking about here. It's like work some different shit, move in different ways, which is why jiu-jitsu is really cool, because I mean, I know that before I did jiu-jitsu, I wasn't moving and putting my body in any of those types of positions. But it allowed me to find places where I was like, ooh, that is really tight. That is really deconditioned. And it allowed me to, I think that was the first thing that I did in my adult years, because I started when I was like 23, that was like, oh, my body there's so much fuckery going on that I never knew about.
Yeah. Well, just basic lateral movement. How many people move side to side or under resistance?
Yeah.
And then go try knee cutting side to side on, you know what I mean, over again, and see how your glutes hold up to that and your hips, and, you know. So, but with jiu-jitsu, it exposes that. The one thing is that we're humans and we have habits, so you're probably going to be passing to the same side with that knee cut a lot of the time, you know, so it's good to, and it's also train your weak side in everything you do, because it's going to make your strong side better, you know what I mean? And it'll balance your body out in the process, you know.
And your strong side has weaknesses to it that you're unaware of.
Right.
The foot that you're jumping off of, your hip flexor on that side might not be as strong as the hip flexor on the opposite side, because you drive up the other leg when you go to jump. Things like that you just don't even think about, you know?
No, I would agree. That makes a lot of sense.
You know, the cool thing also is you mentioned you work out every day, and all of us here do some form of working out every day, despite if it's in the morning or we do something little in the afternoon. We do some type of working out every single day, right? But I know that there's some people that were listening, and there's like, how does he split up his jiu-jitsu and his lifting or whatever? And your answer is infuriating. It's probably to most, because it's like there's no really exact answer.
No.
There's something though. You are experienced as a lifter. You are experienced as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and you're experienced as a runner. So you know how to feel when you should not go so far, and you know how to feel where you can push it.
Yes.
Right. So if someone wants to know, how can I get to that place where I can just kind of audible things, what would your suggestion to them be?
I'd say start with small doses, obviously. The other thing is finding the symbiosis. Like I said, like if you let's say you want to squat, deadlift, and bench in the same week, you also want to run twice, go to jiu-jitsu twice. Like, so if you're going to do squat Monday, you're going to do deadlift Tuesday, and you're going to do bench Wednesday, probably not the best way to organize that week, symbiotically speaking. Whereas if Monday you go out and you squat heavy, and then Tuesday you go for a light run or a ruck, or, you know, whatever your thing. And then maybe Wednesday you hit that upper body, and then on Thursday you're hitting jits, and on Friday you're doing your last, you know, your squat, or your deadlift day. And then the day after that you go and you flow roll for a bit in the morning, and then maybe you go back
flow
for a little
roll
more
means
in the
light roll, guys.
Yeah. And it means actual flow rolling, not, hey, let's flow roll. Yeah, hey, bro, yeah, exactly. So, and then on Sunday, you know, you go for another light run, or maybe you're feeling a little better, so you feel you push it and you go longer run.
Maybe you feel like shit, go on a walk.
Yeah, there you go. And so it's finding something. And it's not like a point of pride to train every day or anything. I just feel better when I do something. And there's not that many days in the week. The way my training structures is generally like kind of an 8-day week, because I can't fit everything into 7, but it still comes out to training every day. And the dosages might not be what you think. Like I built a pretty decent aerobic base. My joints and muscles are pretty good at lactate clearance and to absorbing impact. So running, my body's pretty used to. So I'm fine if I want to run once a week for 10 or 20 or 30 miles and just have that be it. Then I can do that.
When you do those runs, by the way, are you careful about your terrain? Like some people, if they start running on concrete, their joints feel like shit, right? So can you now just run on anything for distance, or are you careful about that?
I can now for the most part, but in the beginning, I plantar fasciitis, knees, it was rough because I was just running in Nike cross trainers on flat cement. You figure out pretty quick that adding in some trail and some hills is a good idea. Plus, it's also just nicer to look at, more enjoyable. You hear birds, you smell fresh air. We're Northern California here, so we got a lot of good places to run. But anyway, just getting outside, plus you get the sunlight. I like to run with my shirt off, not, just to absorb and kind of feel freer and feel everything. And then if I get somewhere, I might take my shoes off and just jump in a river or a creek and then dry out in the sun a bit and run back. I just, I like that way of training as opposed to just circles on the block. But sometimes you can't drive out to a trail or get any space, so you just got to circle the block, as many times as you can in an hour or whatever, whatever it comes out to.
Yeah. That gets to be really boring.
It does, but and I would say
sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah, and sometimes you should do. I don't want to say should, but sometimes there's a lot of benefit from dosing yourself with that monotony regularly.
Do you listen to music or anything, or you just kind of go?
Both. I like music, but sometimes I just get tired of hearing it, and I'll take them off and just want to hear the air. Also, my hearing's not great, so I have to crank my headphones all the way up just kind of get a normal level, and it's probably not too great for my brain. So I try not, I try not to do that too much.
Podcast stuff like that.
Podcast, yeah. Something usually.
Podcast is nice. It really distracts you, and you're like, oh, I'm a lot further in my run than I thought.
Yeah, the educational stuff I like. I'll listen to something on ancient Rome or Greece or something, or whatever the latest thing.
Highly intellectual shows like the Power Project, for example.
Yeah, exactly. The Power Project, Nietzsche, a bunch of stuff like that. But so that's the other thing too. For a while, I was like, there were books. There's some of that. There's always that list of books that everyone's like, you got to read. It's The Art of War, and it's the Book of 5 Rings, and. So there was a while where I just 12 Rules for Life, but I just put them on the list, bought them on Audible. It's just like, all right, you're just going to get through all of these, and then it's like, all right, once you can get music in your last half hour, but the first 3 hours you're going to be just you and Musashi. Yeah. So
are you petting cats?
That's one of the rules, right? Yeah. Never disturb kids when they're skateboarding, and I'm cleaning my room, we'll say. But yeah.
One thing that I was. You kind of said it, and we went to something else. Is because I think Andrew asked, "Is there anything that pulls you back to wanting to do any of that?" And you're like, as in drugs that you used to do, right? And then you just mentioned, well, I'm kind of I just do so much that I don't even think about it. And it's funny. When I was younger, I had a porn addiction, right? And one of the things that actually helped me out was just being busy as fuck and tiring myself out, because when you're so tired at the end of the night, you're like, my shit, right? I just want to fucking sleep, bro. And I think honestly, that could be something that helps so many people out, because myself and yourself and Mark, all of us, we use our bodies so much that it's just you just want to chill. You're so busy, you don't want to do anything else, really, Yeah.
No, I think it's good. I think that's very much part of it. I also think that's the desire for any addiction, drugs, porn, whatever, you're looking to fill an empty piece of you. And I think if you start running, lifting, doing jits, bear hunting, whatever your thing is, it's going to fill a big piece. Yes. So I don't feel the need. I don't feel the pull. I don't also what am I going to do? Shoot heroin? How in any way is that going to eclipse deadlifting 500 and running 50 miles? You think that's more psychedelic or more intoxicating? No, it's not. It doesn't even come close. So maybe I just traded out my drugs. But yeah.
And the thing is the things that you're progressing at are so much more exciting. Like, I'm so much more excited at going and progressing at jiu-jitsu or doing certain things in the gym. Like, these are real things that you can see progress. And you know that every time you train, you feel good afterwards. So you're getting all this continuous positive reinforcement. And you're just like, I don't want to do anything that derails me off of this thing that feels so good already. Right?
No, exactly.
Yeah, the things you got to earn.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that 100%.
What has it done for your mental health as well? Because that's a huge component, right?
Yeah, I mean, the confidence is huge. I mean, that's not the only thing. It affects, your well-being, your clarity, your perspective. Some of the greatest insights I've had about who I am or what I want out of life have come on a long run or after a hard, training session. But the confidence it can't be understated, especially for someone like me who'd never been a part of normal society. I'd never, you know what I mean? Like, I'd worked manual labor jobs with, migrants and, people where, didn't even speak the same language. So I didn't have to talk or interact much. I could just kind of stay in my lane and use the shovel and, whatever else. And so I'd never really integrated to society at any level, and so it was just basic social interactions were strange. You'd get to, a club or, bar or whatever and not really know what the etiquette was for how to do this or how to interact with people or, like it was just so... I had a lot of anxiety and struggled with the confidence a lot,
Jiu-jitsu must have helped a lot with that, especially like being in close quarters with people, like, because I think life is kind of like a combat and there's conflict, and like that's the ultimate combat and conflict is to pair up against somebody and kind of see how you do.
I think Nsima might agree with me. I say when you first join jiu-jitsu, confidence is not what you feel.
No.
That takes a little bit, but no, it did, and even something simple like. Guys might not like to admit it, but most guys walk around pretty afraid inside of, being physically dominated or someone asserting themselves physically over them. And that's why you get the big reactions and the blusters and the guys that see red and bodies hit the floor, that type. So when you have the actual ability to take, most people and not even hurt them, but just restrain them, make them not a threat anymore, sure, you're going to get a lot more comfortable just living day to day. You're going to feel better walking around, safer walking around. And in the back of your mind, you can defend most likely your loved ones, so that helps. I've always been good with weapons. I started early. My brother and I
know how to use weapons.
Yeah, not that. And I'm not a fan of, of that. A lot of the mindsets that come with using weapons on other human beings. I mean, war is one thing, but as far as day to day, I don't understand why so many people are so eager to, use a gun or knife or pepper spray on another I've also just kind of realized as I've gotten older that I don't really have the stomach to hurt people anymore. I've hurt a lot of people physically and in other ways, and it's not something I have in me. I love training. I love fighting. I just don't like hurting. I think the more you understand what it does to another human being when you put a bullet in them or a knife in them or you set them on fire or any of the things I've seen or been through, it changes the way that you think about stuff like that. But having said that, the ability to hurt someone harmlessly, we'll say, I'm all for it. If you're a problem and you become a physical problem, and I think it's great to have the ability to hip throw someone to the ground and mount them and have that be the end of it.
Yeah, Andrew.
What?
I know you're talking trash over there.
No, I'm not.
Take him out.
That's not how it works.
Oh. What you got over there, Andrew? Cooking up anything?
A little bit, yeah. Earlier we were talking about like your back injury and stuff, and you gave me like a quick 30-second version of it. But can you explain a little bit more detail what was going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure if injury is the right word. I found out last year, and I don't put too much stock in the terms, but the doctor told me I have scoliosis. By this time, I had already started deadlifting, doing single legs, training in all this ways. And so when I asked him, like, oh, so what does that mean? What do I do? He's like, you're doing everything perfect. Like, you're doing better than what I would have prescribed you with physical therapy. But what it is my spine, they didn't detect it when I was a kid because it's not like curved, but it curves a little to the side, which leaves my pelvis tilted, left leg's a little longer than the right, which means that I live most of my life with my glute med on my left side pretty turned off, like the outer glute, and very underdeveloped. So even after running ultras, I would just get savage back pain, which in the beginning was other than my feet, was the main thing, you know what I mean? And not just like running the ultra, but getting up day to day to train, and especially when you're hitting 20 miles a day, later on. And But I just figured that was part of it, you know, and tried to get better shoes, tried to address my mechanics a little bit, but it never really did much. And then, ironically, when I started adding deadlifting to the, you know, I'm like, the goal became not to run ultras, but to deadlift and run an ultra in the same day. My back got a lot better. And then I started noticing that feedback and started addressing, like seeking it out. And I maintain that for most lower back issues, and again, everyone's different, and this could make things worse for some people, but the Bulgarian split squat, you know, the goblet side lunge, and some basic deadlifting and hip mobility is, I think most people would be amazed if they did those things with any regularity, even in rotation, what would happen to their back issues, because I mean, my spine's literally crooked, and it's enough to tighten everything and pull it where it should be. And the only downside of that is I pay a bigger, faster price if I skip accessories, and I have made that mistake before too. So,
have you helped anybody through back pain with some of those methods?
Oh yeah. The reverse hyper is also, you know, obviously developed by Westside when Louis broke his back, so it's not a surprise that helps a lot. But that was huge, game changer. There's also some ways to improvise that. The other thing I like doing is belt squat marching. So to put on a belt squat, and instead of squatting, just marching in place. You can play with different knee height's actually a lower step, isolates the glute a little more. So
have you ever used the one here, that
the new one,
Squat Max?
Yeah.
How do you like it? How do you like that for belt squat or squat marching?
It's different stimuli for sure. With that, it's I like the other one for marching more. I like that one for squatting more, particularly like a wider stance squat, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's one thing I wanted to. Oh yes. Okay. So you run hundreds of miles, but people can look at you and like you hold muscle. One thing that people think is like if you are gonna do a lot of this running stuff, especially the ultras, that there's like one build, right? But you're jacked. You lift heavy. You do Jiu Jitsu, and you run ultras. What has been the big aspect of you being able to maintain the size you have? Because you do miles and miles and miles, and people have in their heads that I'm just going to get small, and you're not.
No, I'm definitely atypical when I line up next to other ultra runners. I noticed this weird pattern. A lot of them tend to be my height, 5'11", you know, and like 138 to 140.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I walk around most of the time at about 180, low 180s. Right now I'm about 190 just because I finished putting on a little exercise.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like definitely significantly larger.
Uh-huh.
I think there's benefits to that, by the way, as far as your joints and, you know, just being more armored and being able to take more damage, because running is kicking its impact, you know, it's 100,000 steps over and over again. But as far as secrets, there are little things like the way you structure your lifting and your training. You know, it's like so the AMPK, mTOR relationship, which is mTOR, you know, as you guys know, it's released, you know, in response to resistance training, stimulates hypertrophy, whereas the AMPK is released after, you know, high intensity or long duration cardio exercise. Yeah. So like generally what you would want to do with something like that is get up early and run, because the AMPK will override the mTOR, but it has a shorter half-life. It's only in your system for 3 or 4 hours, specifically if you have a full meal with a good glycogen source in it.
Okay.
Whereas the mTOR is more like 18 hours, so it kind of stays there longer. So if you were to just get up and go lift and get that mTOR flooded and then go right after and do a long run and flood your system with AMPK, the AMPK is going to override that. It's going to make the hypertrophy response less.
So you generally do your runs early. If you're going to double day, run first, lift later.
Assuming my schedule allows it. But that's like a little hack. It's not going to make the difference between night and day being jacked and not jacked. Essentially, it's the overall training structure, the volume. If you're running every single day and lifting once a week, you're going to look like you run every single day and lift once a week. I do track my macros as well as my micros and fiber and stuff like that. So just to make sure the energy balance is where it needs to be, especially because it varies pretty widely. If I run 20 miles in one day, that's an extra 2,000 calories. Whereas if I come in and I do a lift here, it's 4 or 5, 6, you know, something like that. So that's significant difference. Yeah. So it's you know, finding out where you're at with that. But a big part of it also is I'm pretty responsive to hypertrophy, and I haven't done a ton of hypertrophy training in my life. So I do my tries maybe twice, 4 sets twice a week, and my buys 3 to 4 sets once a week. Shoulder. But other than that, it's just basic compound lifts and, finding the right balance.
I think it's also we shouldn't underestimate the amount of resistance that comes from doing jujitsu.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's cardio based, like you are pushing and pulling and holding against another person. So there's a lot of stuff going on with your muscles within that could, if you're mixing it with some lifting, there's a lot of benefit that can go there too.
Yeah, I mean, if you get off, a few rounds of hard rolling, you're going to experience significant muscular fatigue, especially in your hands and the tips of the arms. No. But the main thing with that is to balance it out, because in jiu-jitsu you're doing a lot more pulling than pushing, and there's, like I said, you're going to be favoring one side generally for attacking and defending. And but I agree. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, if you do jiu-jitsu, like you're going to get your hands, the things you're using are going to get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
What are you setting your sights on next?
I don't know. Nothing's jumped out quite yet. Nothing's bit me with the same force that the 500 deadlift and the 50 miles did. But I've kicked around some ideas. I might want to try. I've been considering trying like a strongman competition or something like that. The lightest weight class that I've seen is 19 pounds above my weight, so I'd be the guys would be a lot bigger. But it'd be fun, and I'd like just to challenge myself in training in a new direction, something like that. But bear hunting is my main focus, so just getting you guys as many claws as I can.
Yeah, tell us about these claws.
So
honey badger.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Those are bad. That's an Idaho badger. I didn't kill him or trap him. I found him with a broken leg and some internal bleeding, and had recently passed away. He was still warm in the middle of a snowstorm, and so I peeled him and took some claws and stuff, brought it back because I wanted to teach myself how to work pelts and make like an actual pelt. It seemed like a good skill and just kind of was fun, and ended up being a lot more time consuming than I realized with the pelt of that size and thickness, because badger skin, I mean, it's like crazy thick.
How big's a badger?
It was,
Whoa.
It was a bit, I got a pretty big one. He was pretty big.
I didn't know they were that big.
They are. And the thing is, when you're cleaning them, like even having clean bears, when you're cleaning them, you realize like it's made of something different. Like the density of everything, the difficulty it is to separate. Even when you have like the skin, it's coming, like you're peeling the actual hide off the muscle and everything's separated, you're still like, I'm using significant force. I'm stepping on the tail and, like deadlifting the weight up. Like it's a deceptively
Is this
durable.
the honey badger video?
It's not the honey badger don't care. No, it's a different one, but that shit's hilarious.
It's the last animal you want to confront at close quarters, because unlike a bear, like they're more savage and more durable than the bear, just the size adapted.
Oh my God.
Like I said, strongest animal I know of.
Where does it come from? Like
what areas?
Just like in general, like, we know like
avoid it.
Like, yeah, that too. But like, we know like dogs eventually came from wolves and shit. But
so
like the honey badger,
I believe they come from the same line as bears. It was
so cute too, actually.
Oh, what was it?
honey badger.
It's like not a mustelid, but it's something like
Muskrat.
that. Yeah, it's something. But I think it's bear family.
It's like a fucking sloth on steroids or something.
And the way it runs is like,
yeah, it's all fast and shit. Yeah, but kind of partially moves like a lizard too, right?
Yeah.
Like a tail.
Monitor lizard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching a video where like it went up against like a rattlesnake and it like the venom got into him and then like he kind of passed out and then he got up again and he like started fighting him again and then he got bit again and he passed out and he got up and he ended up winning, but he just
brute for the frat boy defense.
Dude, yeah, I was just gonna say, it reminds me of like people I know that would just get drunk and just keep going and going and going.
I think one of the scariest things is that Komodo dragon.
Yeah, those little fuckers.
I'm not trying to
too.
take a bite from one of those, that's for sure.
Oh.
I hear they can break a human leg with their tail too.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh shit.
I have
Damn,
heard
I didn't
that.
know that.
I cannot confirm.
Have you hunted a badger before?
No, they usually trap them. I mean, I've shot them before growing up. Badgers, pretty much everything, but I've never gone out of my way for it.
so you said this is a claw.
Yeah.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, they look gnarly. You definitely don't want your dog running into one.
Oh,
no.
fuck. Yeah, no. My dogs would get fucked up.
And it has been traditionally a symbol of strength in many cultures too. So
The badger claw?
no, badger in general. Yeah.
Badger in general? I need to make this a necklace and say I hunted. No, I won't say. I won't say I hunted it.
They'll be like, "What gun did you use?" You'd be like,
My hands.
yeah."
Yeah. I stuck
They're
my
dangerous.
fingers in its nostrils.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But a cool thing actually, you could tell like when it comes to something like this, some people be like, yeah, I hunted it, but you're like, I found that shit dead.
Yeah. Oh no, I did. Yeah, I didn't.
Right?
I've hunted many things, but that was not one of them.
Are you allowed to hunt them?
Yeah, they trap them up there, and yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
When it comes to conditioning, do you like prescribe to like you mentioned like rucking, so I'd imagine that's like longer duration. Sometimes when you run, I'd imagine like in the video I saw you were doing sprints on the beach, so you probably really mix it up. You probably do sprints, long duration stuff that's less intense, and then there's probably just some room for you just to smash yourself here and there too, right?
I keep to a pretty fixed schedule. It's not absolute, but it's lift 3 days a week, run once, sprint once, ruck once. Doesn't have, it could be, you could add your sprints to the end of a lifting session. I like to sprint barefoot, always have beach, turf, whatever. Same thing with my lifts and carries. Just, I spent most of my childhood barefoot, and I just always had an intuition that it was, better for your feet and mechanics. The running, generally, I also sometimes I go through periods where I just kind of really like running, and I'll want to sneak another session or two in, in the week. But yeah, generally a upper body day, a hinge, a deadlift day, a squat day, and I sprint once, I ruck once, and then I run once, and then I do jiu-jitsu probably 3 days a week. Yeah. So it feels like I haven't added up, but it feels like I'm usually about 10 training sessions per week.
And when you run, are you paying attention to anything in particular, or you're just kind of like going?
So no, I actually side with you in the camp, or I won't side with you. I take the same approach you do, and I think it's excellent for big people who are looking to get into running early on. Don't worry about the pace, don't worry about the splits, don't worry about the time or the the selfies, whatever it is. Just learn to enjoy the actual thing. And it could be, you could be running a half mile, you could be running 40 miles, whatever it is, but get out there. No expectations, no pressure, no nothing. Just find an area that you like to, that, you don't want to be running laps around the parking lot behind Walmart, or whatever. And just learn to enjoy the process. And if it takes you half a mile and you turn around and come back, that's fine. And if it takes you 100 miles, that's great too. But the first time I tried to run, I made it exactly 100 yards. I was going to try to run to the end of the block and back, which is a full round trip of half a mile, and I made it 100 yards and could not. I just started coughing up cigarette smoke, you know what I mean? And my body was just overweight, again, just, and that was less than 4 years ago.
Wow.
So it's, it didn't take that long really to get to my first ultra or my first, it's that little bit.
Do you care about the way you breathe when you run?
So my nose works about 40%. If you can tell, it's been broken. Oh, and I have a bad, I'm actually trying to get that surgery before too long, because I hear it's just life-changing when you can breathe through your nose again. But I'm aware of it. And there are runs, like a shorter run, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 miles, where I'll just nasal breathing only. I won't tape the mouth or anything, but I just resolve not to. And it takes mental attention to maintain that as well, which I like. But generally, I just breathe. You'll hear, I've heard contradicting things. I've talked to, Dean Karnassus and Zach Vitter, who, these guys that I've tried to learn from as far as stuff like that. And you hear different things. Some guys say it's really important to do it this way. Some guys say get the air in any way you can. I'm mostly out of necessity in that second camp, because if I just genuinely restricted myself to nasal breathing, my air would be very restricted. But I try. I don't neglect it. I try to keep it in the mix.
Yeah, I think Zach, he pretty much just says like breathe whatever way you can.
Yeah, Dean says the same thing.
But he's also like, he runs like 100 miles, and like every mile is like a 6-minute pace or something disgusting like that.
He's genuinely like impressive to me. Like he can run 100 miles in literally half the time. I can't. That's the equivalent of being able to lift twice as much as someone. Like the mountain, that guy can deadlift just over twice what I can. Like literally twice.
Oh yeah.
Like that's a considerable margin. So the fact that he can do something in half the time.
It's not like you're not trying.
No. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know. I've done this a time or two.
Yeah.
And,
like when you're a kid, you can be like, well, I wasn't trying anyway. Remember that, that excuse? Like, if when I try, you're going to be in trouble. But
just wait.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care is another good one.
Yeah. Really quick before we move on, the Outsiders. What's that all? You got to tell us about that.
So my family, my dad, my mom's Japanese, or Japanese and Celtic. My dad comes from a small clan of Appalachian people in eastern Kentucky that lived in the hills, and they so they left the colonies, the British colonies, before America was America, and just decided they were going to go out and do their own thing. And they essentially just have lived. They're just hill people that live somewhat disconnected, well, pretty much completely disconnected from society. There's a lot of stuff going on there now because there's valuable coal in those hills, so a lot of corporations and people are coming in, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, we come from this very, very small little isolated mountain clan that's been pretty distinct for the last since they came to America. And that's where the bear hunting comes from originally, I'm told. My great-grandfather, who I'm told I have a lot in common with or favor, he was the one that brought the family out here from Kentucky. And he had a lot of the same issues that I did, was just kind of like living life, missing something, and had struggled with substance abuse stuff. He went to World War I and got shot and got hit with mustard gas and then shot a bunch of times. And they left him to die. And then this nurse found him kind of just sitting there in the hallway. And it turned out she was from a similar area in Kentucky and took pity on him and nursed him back to health. So he ended up surviving and coming back. But the drinking and, violent behavior got worse. And the story for how we came to California was he got arrested one time and brought down into town. They put him in jail. And he apparently didn't like it very much, so he beat up the jailer, burned down the jail, and then fled and was like, all right, I got to get out of here. I'm heading west. Oh. So he makes it all the way out here, arrives in Marysville, California. First day he's there, 2 men try to rob him in broad daylight. He shoots them both. One dies, one does not, walks off, eventually gets acquitted or slapped on the wrist or whatever. And after that lived a pretty quiet life here. He spawned, brought the Pieratts out here, and then his son went hard in the opposite direction and became a SAC PD motorcycle police officer. So that was my grandfather. Yeah. My dad was a career law enforcement officer as well. And so I guess, and then the white trash saga, I guess you could call it, caught up with me. Someone tried to murder my mom right before I was born. And my dad ended up shooting it out with him and arresting him. And he had gone after my mom because my dad had killed his dad in a gunfight. And so it's a...
This is a fucking,
soap opera?
Not a soap opera. This is like a fucking multi-series TV show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But so I guess, it's like... But it's funny because I learned some of these details later in life, and it made me feel better. Like, I don't know, I'd felt like a black sheep or like I don't know, just different. And it's like, I don't know, there's been, there's history with this, and you have family that experienced similar things, overcame things, and still did something with their life, even if it's just burning down jails or whatever. Yeah. But so I found it comforting.
What's your brother up to?
He's roaming the northern mountains. I think I'll see him.
Portland or something like that? Or
no, you won't catch him anywhere outside of any city that I know of. He stays in Medford, but he's mostly up at our cabin, which is just in the middle of Central Oregon wilderness. I mean, it's off the grid. There's no, we're on solar, and but he's doing good, man. He's running around the mountains. He's shooting guns. He's doing all the stuff that he's meant to be doing. Yeah.
Why is he so flexible again? Like, what martial art do you do? Or
I don't know. Well, we both have been doing martial arts our whole life. Yeah. So I don't have it. I was born with I've speed, like weird speed, but he has flexibility. Yeah. I can't. I have no idea. He's been able to do it ever since we were kids, Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. And I used to try to, he'd bust out the splits and everyone would be like, ooh, and I'd try to, get in on that attention, and no, it didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, his mobility is insane.
Yeah, he's an impressive athlete for sure.
Thanks for coming on the show today. Appreciate your time.
Oh, I appreciate you guys having me on. I had a great time.
Andrew, take us on out of here, buddy.
Sure thing. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. Please drop some comments down below. We'd appreciate it. Let us know if you guys have seen The Outsiders, because I want to check this out. On your post, it said it was on Hulu, so I want to watch that. Yeah,
it's a good show.
So let us know if you guys have been watching that, or if you're going to watch that. Hit the like button and subscribe if you guys are not subscribed already. And please follow the podcast at MB Power Project on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. My Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter is at I am Andrew Z. Nsima. Where can people find you?
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Make sure to go to the Discord, because we've had a lot of really good episodes, including this one. So check that out, and rate and review on Spotify and Apple, please. James, where can people find you?
Wild Hunt Conditioning on Instagram, YouTube, and pretty much all social media.
And if people want to work with you, do you because you do strength and conditioning at 10th Planet, but do you do things with...
I think you put out a book recently, right? Or
No,
you're in it?
yeah, I'm putting out my
Like
program.
an ebook or something.
It's the program for how I ran how I trained to do the deadlift 520 pounds and run 50 miles in a day. I'm just calling it the blueprint. Comes out actually tomorrow. I probably should remember to plug that.
Sick.
But yeah, and it's just basically the overall strength and endurance matrix. As far as I know, there's nothing that compares available for purchase. And it's just how to be well-rounded. If it's not a specific deadlifting or ultramarathon program, it's just how do I be strong and well-rounded enough in all these areas to where on a given day at the drop of a hat, I can go pick up triple my body weight and run an ultramarathon.
Where can people find that? Also,
that will be, I'll link it on my page and on my posts, but yeah, it'll be on our website, which is always linked on our Instagram, our Shopify page.
Gotcha.
I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.